such a beautiful spring day. I love days like this where the sun's shining and we feel that happiness in our hearts. Love it. I happened to go to the grocery store on Sunday, and everybody was smiling. Everybody was. I started thinking about that, the smiles, the happiness, that little ray in our hearts, and the way that just seeing a smile on somebody else's face also makes us feel good. Isn't that a good feeling? Just to hear somebody smile. I think it's wonderful. Well, it is this time of year, however, when the wind does come sweeping down those plains. The song wasn't made without having some sort of reference there for sure that we all are aware of. And some of us right now are experiencing some symptoms, pardon me, that keep us from smiling. Some symptoms make us feel uncomfortable. And that, friends, is caused by that wind that comes sweeping down the plain. I've been watching as I drive down the road or in the backyard, all of the pollen. I bet you have too. It just happens that we are in this time of year where we see such a significant difference in the amount of pollen that's floating in the air. We can see it right now. All of the allergy reports are going crazy. And what do we choose? What do we choose, friends, to help alleviate these symptoms, the way that our eyes water, or our nose waters, itchiness, the cough, all of the mucus production, all of this? 35 million Americans suffer from seasonal allergy rhinitis. Seasonal allergies. Allergy sufferers experience, physical, mental, and even functional decline, even with a moderate onset of discomfort. You ever have one of those days where you're like, man, I just have brain fog and can't figure it out? Well, are you struggling with allergies? Here's the warning, though. Are you aware that many of the over-the-counter drugs or prescriptions can cause memory loss or cognitive impairment? 50% of older adult population use a medication with some degree of anticholinergic effect every single day. Can you imagine? No wonder we're so concerned about our brain health. Numerous drugs have been shown to produce mild cognitive impairment. They may even create or aggravate Alzheimer's type symptoms. Let me talk to you a little bit about that class of drugs. Anticholinergics are known to inhibit the neurotransmitter acetylcholine. And acetylcholine is the big dog, friends. It plays a critical role in memory and cognitive function. What we see is during the course of the normal aging process, concentrations of acetylcholine tend to decrease, resulting in sporadic lapses of short-term memory. But in somebody with a diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease, levels of acetylcholine can drop by up to 90%. The gradual death of cholinergic brain cells results in a progressive yet significant loss of cognitive and behavioral function. The problem is, though, is only a few of those drugs are officially classified as anticholinergic. The official anticholinergic drugs are mostly used for relieving intestinal cramps or bladder irritability and are commonly not labeled anticholinergics, but instead antispasmodic drugs. There are 17 additional types of drugs used for many other purposes that may also have anticholinergic effects. This list, though, friends, includes commonly used drugs like antihistamines, but also acid blockers, antidepressants. The list goes on, including some antibiotics. Unfortunately, many doctors and pharmacists are unaware of the anticholinergic properties of those medicines. Thus, do your homework, or even feel free to look stuff up. Sometimes I look up the name of a drug and I ask Google, the go-to, whether it has any anticholinergic properties. It's not hard to research, yet just like everything we get to discuss on this radio program, it's all about empowering you so that you can make very informed decisions about your health. There's a clinical trial that was published that really was reviewing 27 different studies. They were looking at serum anticholinergic assays to determine anticholinergic activity of a broad class of drugs. And all but 2 studies in this 27 studies found an association between the anticholinergic activity of medicines and even delirium, cognitive impairment, or dementia. The analyst, looking at 27 prior studies on the relationship between anticholinergic effects and brain function, as well as looking into anecdotal data, anecdotal, interesting word, and looking at clinical trials. The team that were researching these 27 studies, though, friends, found consistent link between anticholinergic effects and cognitive impairment in older adults. So here's a warning for you. Take this dear to heart, please. Any over-the-counter medicine with the term PM, like Paul Mary, that will indicate the presence of Benadryl, which is really bad for the brain. Interesting part is the effects of Benadryl can add up. So the more medication that you take containing Benadryl, the worse it may be for cognition. Taking these types of medicines that have anticholinergic effect for 90 days or more may triple your risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. Published, researched. Given the risks, people should look for drugs that don't contain Benadryl and don't contain anticholinergic activity. So let's talk for a moment. It's allergy season, you're saying, Denisha, and now you're telling me not to take Benadryl. Well, you feel foggy on it anyway, don't you? Tired? Don't feel good. There's drugs out here that are H1, sometimes even H2 blockers that are called antihistamines. Antihistamines. And yes, most people will go and find an antihistamine during this time of year. Do you guys realize they don't offer permanent relief. And they don't, well, we'll be careful on this, but these symptoms and complications that we deal with during seasonal allergy time are relieved only temporarily. Those things like the sneezing and itching and nasal drainage, hives, those type of things. Let's talk about that for a moment. I've been talking a lot about this lately because it's this time of year and most of everybody is, they're experiencing something. But when we breathe in the air, all that pollen-rich air, those tiny little particles, they come into our nasal passage. And if they're making it past the nasal passage, then we're inhaling those into our lungs. And those are foreign objects. Our body sees those. They're attracted to these little things in our body called mast cells. Mast cells, when they have a little pollen that lands on one of its little receptor sites on our mast cell, our mast cell says, not good. But then begins to shake up that mast cell, and that mast cell then explodes even more histamine into our body. Yeah, a little bit of histamine's good, though, friends, just so you know. Too much is way too much. It's a balance effect in our body. So when we're breathing in pollen, it's landing then on the receptors on the outside of the mast cell. The mast cell degranulates and releases histamine into our body. So we're left with a lot of histamine free-floating all over. We have little reactions to this histamine, as you know. That's how we have these symptoms of the itchiness or watery eyes or runny nose, sneezing, mucus producing, all of that. When we take an antihistamine, we block the ability to recognize the signs for a period of time. You know how that antihistamine says 12 hours or 24 hours on the outside of the box? When that wears off, what happens? That histamine that was still free-floating within our bodies, friends, still there. And we gain back all of those symptoms that we had because the histamine is still there. See, it's only temporary relief. And when we begin really getting into what's going on in our body, do you not still think that excess amount of histamine, whether or not we can feel it, feel the complications of it, don't you think it's still causing issues within our body? Yes, of course it is. So instead of just temporarily blocking some symptoms, how about we get rid of the excess histamine? I think that sounds like a good idea. Do some stabilization. You know, the original antihistamines that included Benadryl have the drawbacks we've been talking about this morning, being short-acting or making it difficult to concentrate, and even drowsiness. A major side effect of the older medications was drowsiness for sure. And many of us are taking over-the-counter generic antihistamines and still experience this. Don't know why? Now we do. The newer antihistamines, called second-generation antihistamines, they have fewer anticholinergic side effects and therefore have been termed low sedating or even non-sedating. Yet, friends, they are still anticholinergics. and still are blocking acetylcholine in our brain. In a world right now where our younger population, our youth, these people who are in their teens through 20s, you know what their main concerns are that I hear? I commonly am asked, what do I do for my brain health? From them. I can't imagine. You know, this world where I was doing research a few years ago, and I was working with the largest pharmaceutical company in the world. The trajectory was so bad for cognitive impairment in the United States, friends, that at that time, thank goodness there's been a little change in this data, but at that time, there was an anticipation that 50% of the population of America would have some sort of cognitive impairment by the year 2025. No wonder our youth is concerned about cognition. And yet we keep on adding more and more and more to degrade our brain health. We add more to what we take every day. It doesn't seem smart. But it all goes back to education, doesn't it? All goes back to putting stuff back in the forefront of our minds on ways that we can mitigate symptoms without causing harmful side effects. So I'm here to give you some tools, some natural tools that have different types of mechanisms of action. So when I talk about several of these ideas this morning, I really want for you guys to think whether or not you want cognitive impairment or whether you want to get in and stabilize some processes in our body and eliminate excess histamine. Look, I mean, it's going on in my own house too. There's pollen everywhere. It just is the fact. Here's a little idea just to start out this whole approach. There's little things that we can take that stabilize those mast cells. And the stabilization of mast cells is very important if we're going to keep those from releasing, degranulating and releasing the histamine they hold within. And we can do that. Kind of think about this as, you know, this ball in our bodies that's holding on to histamine. Why do we need so much? Yeah. So the first thing is vitamin D. Bet you didn't expect to hear that from me today. Oh, friends, vitamin D is our friend. I love testing, finding out what that vitamin D level is in our body. And I always love to have vitamin K together with vitamin D. Helps with the stabilization, but drives what we need in the right places. Does that make sense? If we're going to have vitamin D in our body, we want it to be benefiting things like our bones, things like our body's immune system, things like our mast cells. And sometimes having vitamin D in our body without vitamin K, that vitamin D decides that it wants to, push some calcium into our arteries instead. That's why people are concerned about super high levels of vitamin D. There's not any reason to be concerned if you take vitamin K, and I have to tell you, K2 as MK7 form is the most ideal form. That's all we have in Star Walker, just so you know. D3, vitamin D3, is cholecalciferol. Obviously, most of us know about that as well, but there's still people who are prescribing vitamin D2. Yeah. D2 is plant-based. Just doesn't do as well, friends. Doesn't raise that vitamin D level effectively in your body. So I go straight to vitamin D3, and the forms that we have, again, in Star Walker are just so superior. And superior because they actually raise levels. Not all Ds are the same either. Not all Ks are the same. It's confusing out here, so that's why I go around this again, talk about it. So vitamin D levels do, when they're elevated, they do help those mast cells to stabilize. We also see really powerful tools in our toolbox that come together in a single capsule. And that's in a product we carry that's called AllerWorx. It does work. AllerWorx is a very comprehensive approach used for seasonal allergies, seasonal immune allergies. This formulation, AllerWorx, does provide fast-acting but natural support for hypersensitivity reactions that include the watery, itchy eyes, runny nose, as well as other manifestations of histamine release, and also helps to stabilize the mast cells in our body. There is a process or an ingredient in AllerWorx that really are designed for that mast cell stabilization. But this comes with a leading edge. I really think this is powerful when we start learning. I've been teaching several doctors lately about AllerWorx, friends, because it is this time of year. But there is a complication with a lot of natural allergy interventions that are out there. I'm going to share this with you because just like we've been talking about antihistamines and anticholinergic drugs that cause memory and cognitive complications, there's a natural ingredient that has a maximum daily dosage for your safety. And that is an ingredient called quercetin. Many of you became very familiar with quercetin during COVID. There's a lot of data on quercetin and its benefits. And unfortunately, many doctors who saw that benefits of quercetin started pushing the dosing really high. I spoke with one, I'm not going to say any names, never would, but I spoke with a doctor last week, friends, who said that he was using 1,200 milligrams of quercetin in his patients a day. And I said, there is a threshold of safety, and that's at 800 milligrams a day. After that, it can cause toxicity in people. I guarantee you that doctor is changing his dosing. I guarantee you he is. Because our job is to first do no harm. And I'm certain that he wasn't trying to do harm. He just didn't have the information that said this is the upper limit of tolerability. You guys know? I mean, doesn't that make sense? So if you see other natural products on the market, typically we will see them not have excessive quercetin in the dose, but what we do see is that it is recommended to take too high of a dose in order to receive relief. You hear how that's contradictory? Don't take the recommended dosing, take 10 times more on one of them I see out here. Yes, they recommend taking 10 times higher the recommended dosing as a loading dose. It's not a good thing. It's not good at all. So instead, we're very careful and use, well, I'll say quercetin is fat soluble, so it likes fat. We use an ingredient in AllerWorx that's called dihydroquercetin, though. And dihydroquercetin is it's safe, has a lot more safety in it, and it's water soluble. So think about the difference. I'm going to tell you, AllerWorx has quercetin too, just low. Has quercetin and dihydroquercetin, both. But what we're doing is targeting the source of histamine release with AllerWorx. Dihydroquercetin and quercetin, they bind to calcium complexes, preventing the influx of calcium into the mast cells and preventing them from degranulating and releasing histamine in the first place. This is what knowing science, getting into all of this data really reflects. Well, friends, efficacy, but safe efficacy. There's these things that are called bioflavonoids. We talk about them a lot on this show. Quercetin, dihydroquercetin, and even rutin are active bioflavonoids, which are incorporated into AllerWorx specifically for their role in moderating this exaggerated immune response that we feel that it responds to. Bioflavonoids work alone, and they're synergistic with other antioxidants to protect tissues from the negative effects of oxidation and inflammation that's very commonly observed during hyperimmune reactions. And even bioflavonoids strengthen capillary fragility. I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about some pretty interesting, some words, some functions even of our body, and then give you some additional little tools this morning to help you along in a natural but safe way so that you can preserve your brain health instead of further degrading it just because of allergies that bring good to our body. But I don't know about you. You tried something natural as an antihistamine before and felt like, this isn't working for me. Yeah, I've seen it too. There's been a lot of people out there that have tried natural substances, and oftentimes they were told to take 10 times the recommended dose. It's very common with one in particular that I see sitting on counters. And I don't know about you, but number one, I don't want to spend my money like that. But number two, I want efficacy without there being potential side effects or harm. And at that dose, on those others, there's harm. So bringing you some ideas this morning that are different, positive, and they're beneficial. Just as we started talking about AllerWorx this morning, I really like this formulation. When we start looking, though, about some of the things that happen, I'm going to share, go a little off topic, kind of on topic, but off topic for just a second, friends. Because what I see in the market is sometimes people are using things like Benadryl, those anticholinergics, for a dermatitis reason. And dermatitis is often associated with an allergy to something. Well, first and foremost, our skin reacts. We have this little dermatitis going on. But there's a hidden little secret that I want to share with you guys listening this morning. I want you to know that our comprehensive vascular and lymphatic support, that one formulation, has been studied to improve atopic dermatitis in massive amounts of clinical trials. It has a lot of anti-inflammatory activity and stabilization activity, but also helps to eradicate what's inside our bodies that we're reacting to through our skin as well. This came up, I think, yesterday. I was talking with somebody about, the way to really help with a process of removing some, nasty byproduct they were trying to eliminate. And, comprehensive vascular and lymphatic support was brought up as part of that whole process of, it causes the lymphatic tissue to move, to get rid of stuff. But I wanted to bring it up as an additional tool this morning. If you're somebody who has seasonal allergies, but also this dermatitis complication, itching, rashy, red, that stuff on your skin, add on some comprehensive vascular and lymphatic support. Usually 2 or 3 of those a day is the dose that I'm seeing in the clinical trials they're used that we could replicate in your body. Pretty easy. But I'm not going to downplay, friends, there are so many clinical trials on this, on that or helping with dermatitis. There's so many. So back to AllerWorx, I want to get into this process that, big words, but there's a process in our body that's called HistaCalm 1. And that's a biomarker in our body of inflammation and our body's immune system response, as well as tissue damage or repair. What we see is HistaCalm 1 expression was reduced by approximately 50% with dihydroquercetin, while quercetin and even other natural compounds produce less than 20% reduction of HistaCalm 1. And so we see that many different clinical show that there is superiority of dihydroquercetin at reducing inflammation and helping to bring better balance back into our body. So using quercetin alone may not be the right approach. See? Yeah. Dihydroquercetin supports the antioxidant activities of even vitamin C and provides protective effects of its own. So this form of dihydroquercetin that we use in AllerWorx, friends, is from Siberian and Diherian larch tree. Represents the native form found in nature, water-soluble, very safe, very, very bioavailable. And this specific form of dihydroquercetin, it has a very impressive antioxidant value. We call that an ORAC value. It has an ORAC value of 28,000. ORAC reflects the oxygen radical absorbance capacity. Yeah, it's going in and it's wrapping up all this stuff where it's saying, all right, we're going to get all this free radicals out of our body too. So remember, 28,000 for dihydroquercetin. Quercetin has an ORAC value of 13,000. So as you can see, dihydroquercetin is definitely superior. And dihydroquercetin has a very high penetration into human cells as well. When we look at clinical trials, there's one on skin inflammation. That makes sense if we're talking about allergies. Dihydroquercetin blocked various biochemicals that contribute to dermatitis. Dihydroquercetin alleviates skin inflammation by stimulating this powerful anti-inflammatory molecule known as interleukin-10. Interleukin-10 helps reduce the skin's hypersensitivity reactions to external agents. All too common cause of dermatitis too. What I want to say though is I've labored a little bit on dihydroquercetin and quercetin because again, many of us became really familiar with quercetin and its big anti-inflammatory, actions in our body. But dihydroquercetin combined with quercetin, safer and much more effective. So become a label watcher. Take a moment to look at the labels of those natural things and know that on AllerWorx, we chose very wisely, very safely. AllerWorx also has vitamin C, N-acetylcysteine, stinging nettle extract, bromelain, and rutin as well in it, friends. So what we see is vitamin C prevents histamine release as well, increases detoxification of histamine in addition. So very, very little amount of time that vitamin C needs in your body in order to help to reduce that concentration of histamine and then again stabilizing the mast cells so that we release lower and lower amounts of histamine. NAC, I love NAC. NAC is known as a natural mucolytic compound. So what we see is NAC reduces or decreases the thickness of mucus. So thinning and then helping to eradicate more effectively. It doesn't feel good. You've got pressure whenever there's real thick, nasty mucus. And when that nasty mucus continues to accumulate like that, nice and thick, holds on to bacteria. That's how we get little sinus infections. Not good either. But if we had NAC on board, it's an AllerWorx, friends, it helps to thin that mucus and then helps also to eradicate it from our bodies. So we have less and less opportunity for bad bacteria to set up shop. I like it. Stinging nettle helps to regulate a variety of inflammatory activities associated with the allergic response. Yeah, helps with mast cells. Helps to prevent that degranulation. The inflammation markers are also supported with stinging nettle. And even how histamine works in our body is regulated with stinging nettle. Bromelain. Most of us know bromelain as that little enzyme that's extracted from the stem and fruit of pineapple plants. Helps modulate the inflammatory response. Very beneficial in combating allergy discomfort. And by the way, I like little pearls like this. It earned an approved status in Germany for microinflammations, including allergic reactions. Right there, bromelain. Early studies, though, identified its positive effects of controlling edema and tissue permeability, and even vasodilation. Bromelain, it's in AllerWorx. Rutin reduces capillary permeability and edema as well, which can reduce that mucus buildup or even runny nose. So think about lowering this inflammation and lowering the amount of mucus that's being produced and lowering the amount of all of these signs and symptoms of allergies. And it's all together in AllerWorx. Let's talk dosing real quick because I like to talk about dosing. If you haven't taken AllerWorx recently, you can take 1 or 2 capsules. Start out with 1 twice daily, one of those twice daily for the first week. If you're not getting enough symptom relief with 1 capsule twice daily, then increase that dose to 2 capsules twice daily only for that first week. And then you can reduce down to 1 capsule either once or twice a day. See, once we get these compounds in our bodies, friends, they really begin to stabilize all of the processes, even when it's a nasty, windy, high pollen kind of day. It's a good thing to take this on an ongoing basis. AllerWorx does build up benefit. A lot. But let's start in an ongoing way of bringing benefit to our bodies and not just wait until we have a symptom. Most of us already have a symptom right now. So let's talk about that. What happens if you wake up in the morning and you feel that you've been clawing away at your eyes, or not, but you wake up with that allergy cough, or somebody in your family does? That one that just kind of keeps on lingering. Wake up, you've got all this mucus, you're coughing, you don't know how to eliminate it. It's just causing issues for you. Allergies. Well, I have found an answer for quick relief. And I have to tell you, this is going on right now in my better half. And every morning, I look at him as he coughs, and he's having issues with allergies and doesn't want to take antihistamines because we know what the science shows. We want our brain health to be positive. So instead, I give him the get out of jail free card. You guys like that? Get out of jail free card. I bring over HistaCalm, and I give him 2. If you guys remember HistaCalm, it's diamine oxidase. And diamine oxidase is naturally occurring in our body. You can't do harm with diamine oxidase. I love this tool. It's HistaCalm. So I bring 2 of those to him first thing in the morning. He takes those, and within, I don't know, friends, less than 5 minutes, that annoying cough stops. And I look at him, and I say, well, something worked, didn't it? And smile. Because that smile's back on his face, too. Isn't that how we started this morning? How do we gain our smiles back? How do we start to feel better? How do we have less coughing around us, less symptoms? Happier people, feeling better, not losing our brain health. I keep thinking about HistaCalm as that one little tool, the thing that we have, that nasal congestion, sneezing, runny nose, bronchial constriction, shortness of breath. You wake up with vertigo, even dizziness, headaches, the hives. Even sometimes during allergy season, we see more symptoms of stomach ache or diarrhea, bloating, gas, heartburn, even high blood pressure, arrhythmia complications. Do you guys know that all of those are reactions to excess histamine in our body? You know that? So it makes sense to me to have HistaCalm sitting right there. Have to tell you, I was in Tulsa last week. My daughter came in and was just struggling. She was having allergy symptoms so bad right in front of me. Her nose was running. She was looking more and more inflamed, a little red-faced. Eyes were a little watery. She just didn't feel good. Well, fortunately for her, her mama walks around with HistaCalm and AllerWorx. I handed over HistaCalm to her, and she's like, "Oh, yeah." I said, "It's that time of year." She says, "Oh, yeah." And she took her HistaCalm right then, and within 5 minutes, she looks up, and her smile came back on her face. All these effects that she was feeling of histamine started getting lighter and lighter and lighter. And she totally forgot that she walked in the door with that nose running and feeling bad. And we had such an incredible time spending time together. I've been watching that there are a lot of people who have hidden themselves indoors right now, not enjoying this weather, not enjoying getting out and walking because pollen's so high. Ooh, I can't. Well, with these type of tools, you can. You can. You can feel the relief. What I'm going to share with you, though, is that what I find is taking these consistently during this time of year, if you're a seasonal allergy sufferer, taking these ongoing does build up the benefit. It does help to stay on them. So, yeah, we probably start therapies because we feel them. We feel symptoms. We don't feel great. But if we stay on these during seasonal allergy time, take the moment to look at the pollen report. I sit there and I think about, how important it is for us to just maintain control of our body. So think of AllerWorx and HistaCalm the same way that I think about an antihistamine. Would you take it every day during allergy season, or would you wait until you feel really bad? Sneezy, watery eyes, cough? What about that dizziness? What about those stomach complications? I go and I look into science, friends. I think about histamine and the histamines in our body. There are 4 different known histaminic pathways, H1, H2, H3, H4. And they all carry some sort of response within our body. So when there is excess amounts of histamine in our body, we do experience a lot of complications. It's not just this mucus secretion or respiratory tract complications. Do you know that excess histamine can cause estrogen to go high? Yeah. And can cause complications that, become uterine complications. And then heavy periods can be caused by excess amounts of histamine. Yeah, pretty wild. Do you know that excess amount of histamine can cause complications that lead to acid reflux, that gastric acid secretion that can then cause either diarrhea, stomach aches, cramps, complications like that. Excess histamine can actually cause complications of even your bone marrow. Yeah, pretty crazy. Excess histamine, all these little inflammatory markers. Excess histamine, though, also can cause neurotransmitter complications that can lead to, like what we've been talking about, headaches, nausea, vomiting, even arousal and circadian rhythm complications, regulation of your body temperature, learning, memory. Then even cardiovascular complications, vasodilation, tachycardias, arrhythmias. All of this can be because of excess histamine. And during this time of season, friends, when there's a lot of pollen in the air, you can see that this battery of symptoms that oftentimes goes a different direction for a doctor looking at these type of symptoms. Don't you think that taking control of the root cause, the underlying issue, would yield even further and further benefit? Yeah. So that's the reason why I bring this up this morning. Yes, it's season. Yes, it's allergy season. Yet, so many other complications can be going on in your body because of excess histamine. So, AllerWorx and HistaCalm are two very powerful tools that I can't recommend any more, any higher. But you can see now how big of a deal this really is. When we start to feel symptoms of allergies, it means we have too much histamine in our bodies. Keep in mind these powerful tools and additional benefits, though, that we can add to these. Things like making sure that level of 25-hydroxy-D, vitamin D, keep that nice and elevated, friends. If you're still having complications with more of the dermatitises or skin conditions, add on that comprehensive vascular and lymphatic support. 2 of those, twice a day usually. It's a real good dose. I sit here and I think about AllerWorx, HistaCalm, all of these symptoms. And you know, it's kind of inside investigation. Getting into hard science sometimes, it does make a difference. And knowing that with this type of approach, friends, that we are preserving our cognitive health. We're eliminating these symptoms and eradicating the complication that sets in with anticholinergics and antihistamine drugs. I want to preserve my brain health, and I know you do too. Most of the time when we see dermatitises, though, these little skin stuff, it's because there's disruption in the gut. I have to tell you that, you know, it's a powerful morning that we've gotten to share together this morning. Empowering you with good information is always positive. Looking forward to seeing smiles on your faces today as I cross paths with friends. Tune in.